because he literally needed someone to hold the ultrasound in place while he committed this abortion. And he needed an extra set of hands. And so my hands were the ones that were used. And, I have to say, it was horrifying. It was shocking. I felt so stupid for believing this lie for 8 years.
Abby, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on.
The movie about your life has been so inspiring to so many of us. And for my wife, Chelsea, and me, our first 4 kids were adopted. And my wife is herself an adopted child. And so this subject is so important to me. For those people who didn't see the movie or read the book, can you just remind us a little bit, how did you get your position in Planned Parenthood as a leader there, and what was your goal?
Yeah, I started working there as a college kid. I grew up in a pro-life home. I grew up in a conservative home, but we didn't talk about abortion. I didn't grow up in a home that, was sitting around the dinner table talking about the ins and outs of being pro-life or being pro-choice. I think my parents, they had taught me the biblical pathway to marriage. And so I think they just sort of thought, well, as long as Abby follows that path, then abortion will never be on the table. And so, we don't need to talk about something so unpleasant with our little girl. And so, we just didn't. And I went to college and met a woman with Planned Parenthood, and she was trying to recruit college students. And, I tell people all the time, wherever there are vulnerable women, so is Planned Parenthood. And there are tens of thousands of vulnerable women on college campuses each and every day. And so that's exactly why Planned Parenthood is there, trying to recruit them. And she was telling me all of the talking points that we have all heard about how wonderful Planned Parenthood is as an organization and how they're trying to help women. And if we're not here helping women obtain safe and legal abortion, which that was the talking point, that was the tagline back then these women are going to go and have unsafe, back alley, at home coat hanger abortions. And so all of that sounded great to me as a young student. And I got involved first as a volunteer and then eventually got hired there full time and rose up through the ranks and then became a clinic director there and was actually running the health clinic and also the abortion clinic there at a facility in Texas, and ended up leaving in October of 2009 after witnessing a live ultrasound guided abortion procedure where I saw a 13-week-old baby fight and struggle for his life against the abortion instruments. And I knew then that there was life inside the womb, that there was humanity there inside the womb. And I knew that if those two things were true, then I was on the wrong side of this debate. And so I ended up leaving.
Abby, this is so fascinating to so many of us. Why was there not a disconnect earlier in your time there at Planned Parenthood? And you said you grew up in a Christian home, pro-life views being discussed around the kitchen table. Did you really think that you were doing a good thing by being there and assisting these abortions?
Really, when I got involved, I really thought, abortion is sort of this necessary evil. And that was really how it was sold to me by Planned Parenthood. It's only 3% of what we do. We're really trying to prevent the need for abortion. And so, help us prevent the need for abortion by educating women, by providing these preventative services to them. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'll do. That sounds like almost a heroic thing to do by helping to prevent abortion. And you really unintentionally become a salesperson for the abortion industry. And you start selling abortions just like you would be selling a car. to someone if you worked on a car lot. And women would come in, and even if they were happy about being pregnant, and they would say, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'm pregnant. I had a positive pregnancy test. I can do this. I can have a baby." Then our job became to wreck their plan. Planned Parenthood and other organizations like them, they are built on killing innocent children. So, of course, they are that sinister. And, there's two reasons. One is because child sacrifice is child sacrifice. Abortion has always been child sacrifice. Human beings have been sacrificing children since biblical times, right? We just call it something more palatable today. We call it reproductive rights, or we call it, women's rights or reproductive justice. But also, they're so fervent in their fight for abortion because it is such a money making industry.
If someone had said those things to you early on in your time there, you probably even heard those things from some people, but that didn't really sway you or turn you away. It was when you witnessed with your own eyes the struggle of a baby against the abortion instruments, right?
That's right. And, that was not something that was typical for me. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I was not typically in the room during abortion procedures. So, I was an administrator. So, I was over personnel. I looked at our budgets. I was, over the money part of the business. So being called into the room during an abortion was not typically something that I was a part of. And using an ultrasound during an abortion is not traditionally something that is done inside of an abortion clinic. But we had a visiting physician that day. And so he wanted to sort of show us what this would look like. And he thought it would be a good learning opportunity for us. And so that's why I was called in, because he literally needed someone to hold the ultrasound in place while he committed this abortion. And he needed an extra set of hands. And so my hands were the ones that were used. And I have to say, it was horrifying. It was shocking. I felt so stupid for believing this lie for 8 years, and really eagerly believing the lie. Because if I just would have done a little bit of digging, if I just would have opened my mind up to this just a little bit, I would have been able to see the lie. But when you're in this evil, when you're living in this evil, you don't want to open your mind up to it. You don't want to see the truth. Because if you see the truth, then you have to make a decision whether you continue living the lie or whether you flee from it. And I had been living it for so long, I think it was terrifying for me to actually open up and to say, okay, is what I'm believing a lie, or is it really true? I went to church the entire 8 years that I worked at Planned Parenthood. And I have to say, though, I never prayed, because there was a part of me that I believe knew that what I was doing was wrong.
You weren't just wrestling with ideas or worded arguments. It changed everything for you. And then you were faced with that decision. What do I do now? I'm curious, when you went to your boss and you said, hey, what did you tell them? Did you say, I quit? Or did you say, wait a minute, how did you explain to them?
It actually took me a week to leave. So I really tried to justify what I had seen on the ultrasound monitor. And I tried to think to myself, okay, maybe I was seeing something
Yeah,
else,
maybe I'm just
you know?
overreacting. Maybe this isn't a problem. Maybe I don't have to change everything that I've been doing for the last 8 years.
Right. Because I thought, okay, because let me also say this. I have had two abortions. So I thought, okay, is that really what happened to my babies? I mean, if I'm admitting that abortion is a heinous murder of innocent children, then I'm having to admit that I've murdered my own two children. And that's a big admission of guilt. And so I thought, I don't know if I have the courage to actually admit that. And so it would be a lot easier for me to just sort of try to justify away what I had seen on that screen. So I thought, did I really see that baby fighting for his life? And so I tried to make it okay in my head for a few days, but I just couldn't. I knew what I had seen. I could not stop seeing that image in my head. And then I thought, you know what? I can change Planned Parenthood. I thought I can maybe help them see that we don't need to do abortions anymore.
And you thought, well, maybe I was just misunderstanding what I saw, or no, I wasn't. Maybe I can change the way that the abortion clinic views this, and they'll see what I saw. And when that didn't work, you ended up having to leave. Did they try to keep you there? Did they try to change your mind? Did you get into a big fight with them? Or was it like, hey, you do you, and we'll do us, and we'll just agree to disagree?
I turned in my resignation. I faxed it in at 5 o'clock on October 6th. And I thought, okay, they're pro-choice, right? And I've been with them for 8 years. They had just given me their Employee of the Year a few months before. And so I thought, they're pro-choice. They are going to respect my choice to no longer be here, to no longer be a champion of abortion. And that's really what I believed. I really, really did naively believe that. And so, I left. I thought that was sort of it. And then 3 weeks later, on October 31st, I was served court papers from Planned Parenthood, and they were taking me to court, and they were trying to get a permanent gag order against me so that I would not be able to tell my story, and I would not be able to talk about things that had happened inside of Planned Parenthood, like instituting abortion quotas, a certain number of abortions that we had to sell to women coming in. The large donors that give to Planned Parenthood, different things like that. The number of cases that we had settled outside of court because we had injured women on the table. Just different things like that they were trying to silence me about. And so we ended up going to court the first part of November, and they lost, obviously. And so ever since then, I've really been telling my story. But what that did was it created media interest in my story. So when they sued me, then all of a sudden the media was like, well, what don't they want her to say? We want to
Right.
know, right?
Right.
And so that really created a lot of interest in my story. And I've just been going around and speaking and telling my story, and really trying to bring a lot of healing for those who have been hurt by abortion in any way as well. And even those who have worked in the industry like myself. They need a tremendous amount of healing as well.